Afternoon all. Today's plan, I want to make another walrus skull. I made a miniature one the other day for the doll's house here. I'm going to have another go. Somebody else has asked me to make them one. Last one was 1/12 scale, which is standard doll's house measurement. I'm going to use this piece of red deer antler. Well, I'm not. I'm going to use a bit of the skull, the pedicle. Bony looking piece of bone, as you'd imagine, and we'll use that for the skull, and we'll probably use pig's teeth for the two little tusks. So that'll be a bit of fun. I carve a lot of antler, but I don't carve a lot of antler at the same time. Most of the antler is useless for what I'm using it for. When I say useless, I get little bits out of the shell, which I use for the toggles on the necklaces and stuff, but generally I'm only aiming for about that much of the antler. This bit is solid bone, but anything after that you just get into this spongy, smelly rubbish, which I don't tend to use really. I don't have a lot of use for that. That's why I tend to use small yearling antlers, bucks that are taken out in the cold, and it's a vital part of deer management that you trim the species, keep the herd healthy, especially the males. You don't want loads of little runty males running about spreading their genes into the gene pool. You want a couple of nice big bucks, and the rest need management. We've got nothing else here at the moment that trims up deer apart from vehicles and deer managers. We lost the wolves, the lynx and the bears back in medieval times, so yeah, deer need careful management. I source my antlers very carefully. A couple of stalkers who I know and trust, and I know they're doing a good job the right way, and the antlers that they give me are a byproduct of a bigger picture. So yeah, I use antlers, and well, this one I took him about 3 or 4 miles up the road. I saw him there last year lying in the ditch, and I thought, poor old bugger, so I stopped, and he was beyond help, but his antlers were more than usable. I've used one already, and I've been saving this one for just such a task as today, so hopefully today we'll get a result out of that and get this walrus skull done. So anyway, square it up, see if I can find a skull in there. And I say I'm only really after the bone portion. Well, that's all bone antler is, but the part that was attached to his skull is the part I'm after. So I'm going to saw this off now, and we'll save the antler for another project, but for now I just want the bone. Get in there, you swine. I do have a bigger vice outside, but that's outside, which is why I'm doing it in there, because it's bloody cold. Right, that's why I'm using the pedicle of the skull as opposed to the antler. It's a nice, clean, solid piece of bone. There's very few parts of any body that produces a solid stack of bone like that. There's always a piffy centre in any other sort of bone you try and use. That's usually what you're going to get inside a bone. So, I mean, these are perfectly usable pieces and portions, but a solid bit is not going to happen. Even a bit that looks solid is nothing but spongy marrow. But the piece on the top of the skull is good solid stock, so that's why I head for that as a stock piece. Trying to decide which way up looks more walrusy. And that's the front of his nose, that's top of his head. Take this bit off, and that'll be where our walrus lays. That's a nice bit of antler, so we'll leave that aside. Use that later. People always remind me on these videos that antler stinks. Well, yes it does, but I always say if you can smell it, you're doing it wrong. If you get it hot, grinding it too hard, yes it does stink, but as long as your tools are sharp and you go steady, it doesn't really smell as bad as people make out. So it's got an aroma to it, everything has, but it's not that bad as long as you treat it carefully. But I'm going to mask up for this next bit, because I'm going to hit it on the sander and knock the edges off. So the mask is essential. So that's the stock piece prepared. As you can see, I don't mess about with a big heavy sander and just take it off. You could sit there for days scraping it with a knife, perfectly viable. File, even a piece of sandpaper. But doing this for a living, I have to find quicker ways of doing a lot of the things I do. So the early stages is quite brutal. Get it off, get it gone, get it down to where you need it to be. Once you can see into your material, it makes it a whole lot easier. I think a lot of carvers come unstuck by trying to do the first bit the hard way. You spent 2 hours with a penknife shaping the log down to the size you need it to carve whatever you're going to carve. It does tend to put you off. So if you can get it to a position where you can start, hit the ground running, you stand a lot better chance of staying the distance and getting it finished. So yeah, the first few stages are quite progressive and aggressive. One of the first things I do when I'm marking out a skull is draw an equator around the material. That way I can keep it symmetrical, basically. Skulls have a tendency to wander. You can get more off one side than the other, and they always look a little odd. So if I lay a line around it to start with, I can then level it up and make sure I'm in the middle, keep it central. But yeah, I think there's a skull in there. Walrus skulls are funny looking objects. It's probably a little bit of artistic license because nobody really knows what a walrus skull looks like, do they? One or two of you will do, but most people are pretty much in the dark as to the anatomy of a walrus's skull. But I try and keep it as accurate as I can. I'm using the 3D scan of a real walrus skull as my reference. Unfortunately, I don't have one here as a hands-on reference, but I can find good 3D models online. I'll use those. I think this one came from Dundee University, one in their collection, so I'll go with that. Right, we are getting there now. So yeah, that's the rough out. Starting to look a bit more shapely. Just going to go with a pencil now and shore up all the lines, level it all up, get where I want to get the details and start to work through the holes and gaps and get some light in there. But yeah, so far that'll do. Back of the walrus's skull is always quite a large affair. So fight with the tusks. So the skull is the anchorage point. So you've got this big flare on the back where the neck muscles go, which make it quite a powerful beast. So it's quite a wide portion of the skull comparatively to other mammals. Put my centre line back in, make sure we keep to that because there we are, he's starting to look a little more skull shaped now. These are the holes where his tusks will go to socket into there. That's the basic rough out of the skull. People always say, what tools do you use? Well, all of those, plus a few more. Most of these are tungsten carbide points and cutters, various types, makes and sizes. You never have too many. Now it's skull shaped, I can get the hand tools in there and get the fine creases and undercut and hollow out, fine tune the shapes and get that nice and tidy. Then we're going to concentrate on the tusks and socket them in. I'm going to peroxide this one, something I very rarely do, but I know the client who's ordered this likes his bones bright white, so he's asked if I can get this as clean as possible. So I'm going to peroxide this so it's nice and white for him. Then we'll fix the tusks in. Yeah, should be a nice Nice little piece, but a bit more to do yet, but we're getting there. I've got the skull pretty much done now. Start working on the tusks next. For those I'm going to use pig's teeth. Cut these down and hopefully that'll make two nice little tusks that should fit in them sockets, and you should start to look more like a walrus. Find a pair, that'll be a bit easier to we'll go with those. These are hollow most of the way down, so cut them in half about there. That's the solid portion that we want. Cool. There's a smell that takes me back. When I first started carving, that was my go-to material, was pig's teeth. So I was a pig farmer at the time, and pig's teeth came my way quite regularly, so it was quite easy to get hold of back then. If anything died or was put to sleep, I always bagsied the teeth, and actually learned to carve by carving pig's teeth, funnily enough. And they do stink. People say antler smells bad, but pig's teeth, absolutely rancid. Anything worse than a pig's tooth I've ever cut was a human tooth, and they really do stink. I'm pretty sand the sides of these flat. They seem to lend themselves to having a flat side. So I'm going to glue them together. So any shape I adjust on either one will leave it completely symmetrical, because otherwise you end up, one will always be slightly more or less curved than the other, which they are in nature. If you look at a walrus, they very rarely have immaculate symmetrical tusks, but when people are buying a carving one, they seem to want to see them identical. So I'll do as best I can to keep these somewhat symmetrical. Flatten this side a bit. The thing with pig's teeth, they're a lot like hippo tusks to work with. They have that's a hippo tooth, but they've got an incredibly hard enamel. The middle is just dentine, it's relatively soft, although in a hippo it's harder than it is in most other animals. But this skin of enamel is absolutely wicked. You get it on the sander, it'll throw sparks sometimes. It's that hard. It's like trying to grind cast iron. It's horrendous. And pig's teeth, pretty much the same there. They've got a very hard protective coating, which is a bugger to get off. Once you're through that, you've got some nice material under there, but I'm not going to go through that yet, so I'm going to stick these together. Just a little dab. You can't have too much super glue and then you can't get them apart, and that's always a ball ache. I've done that before. It's just a temporary fix to keep them at the same. People are always surprised when I show them a pig's tooth. Oh, pigs don't have teeth. Oh yes they do. I've got the scars to prove it as well. That's an African warthog, which you'd expect to have quite sizable teeth, and they do, and they're delicious to carve, but hard to get hold of. I'll grab a domestic pig and we'll have a look. Right. This terrifying object is it's one of them sweet little teacup pigs you see at the farm petting zoo. They're not, you know, people say, oh, they don't get that big, but they do. And this one did. Although, compared to a domestic pig, a farm pig, he's quite small. I've seen boar skulls over 3 foot long, and teeth to match. So, but yeah, he's quite a characterful little critter. But you can see the teeth. how they work. When they're fighting, you slash the head from side to side. When they stick in your thigh, they hurt. So yeah, pigs do have teeth, and lots of them, and they're quite gnarly. So yeah, you should be set now, so we can start to shape them carefully. Far too big at the moment, but it's another thing of walruses, you can't go too big. You've got to have big tusks. No one wants a walrus with squeaky little tusks, but they've got to skinny them down a bit to get them to fit the shape. Right, next job. Starting to look a little more walrus tusk shaped. A little bit more work and they will fit in there quite hopefully, quite well. Try and work out how thick to get them. Right. It's quite a convincing pair of walrus tusks, I think. Fit. So my next job is going to be remount the sockets, dig up into these root bulbs, secure socket for that to go in. Once we've got a socket, we can then just refine this so it fits at the right angle. And should be something getting there somewhere. There it goes. Starting to look more like a walrus now. So they fit. I can now get on with sanding and polishing before I put it all together. Just brushing it over with the knife point to finish. Just getting all the little gaps, nooks and crannies, and just wipe out any tool marks or pieces I can't reach to polish. This gives it a cleaner, smoother finish. So when you work on small scale like this, if you try using sandpaper or other abrasives to finish it, you often end up wiping out more detail than you plan to. The knife work is still vital. Just tune up those little curves and edges without taking too much off. Still got a bit more work to do underneath. I'll get all the foramen and the fosses cut in, all the little nooks and crannies, holes and nerve endings. Go up into the nasal cavity from the back, hollow out the brain case. I'll add the nerve holes in the jawbone, a couple of sinus holes in the eye sockets. But yeah, that's the gist of it. And we'll fix the tusks in last, make sure they're neat and level. We'll be getting somewhere. There he is, all fixed up and finished. Nice little walrus skull. This one's off home to Scotland soon, so I'm getting boxed up nice and safe and send him on. Cheers for watching. I'll catch you next time. See you later.